Beginning the process of starting to play Armada, first thing that happened, I rolled up my money, and the Spaniards actually came away with, I think, the top 2,700. The English, a mid-range around 1,200. That's a good indication to use for how soon can you attack. But I haven't played the game in a long time, so I have to do some math to try to figure out, and that's one of the things I'll get to in a moment, but I have to do some math to try to figure out, you know, what can I sustain and when. So the first thing, the thing I wanted to get to, this game front loads, just like 1853. The biggest decisions that you're going to have. Now, the English don't really have to make a lot of decisions. They're going to be playing a kind of reactive game throughout. But the Spaniards have to decide, when am I attacking? Where am I attacking? How, you know, what is my path to victory, essentially? Normally, I've taken that as a march into France, try to win in France, get my 15 quick victory points. I get one more victory point, that's enough to win, right? 15 is the draw level. So a success outside of France, great. You know, I don't have these huge goals beyond turning France Catholic. Okay, that's a, you know, very low-key strategy because I'm just going for the marginal victory. It also hasn't helped or worked very well. And the plan was, hey, march the Spanish troops over, try to conglomerate a fleet. Well, the fleet gets defeated when it comes in. Okay. But now I have a lot of money. So maybe I want to launch an early attack, early in the war, an early landing in England. So I start counting up the strength points of the units. And the Spanish, you know, you can see 5, 10, 20, etc. I'm still going to have to put my fleet fitting out, and I'm going to have to gather it together because some of them, they're all over the coast, essentially. I also have my better leader at this point. Might have to build some troops and throw them into the ships in order to transport them over. Because I don't, you know, my first thought is, well, I'm not going to have time to build, in this case, these big Walloon barges with their 20 maintenance cost. Wow, those are expensive. So allow the Duke of Parma to cross. Well, that's a dangerous concept. It was played with, but the idea is, okay, you have lots of Dutch Walloons and allied troops here. But it's hard to justify making that invasion or attempting that and going down that path when there's so many Dutch Protestants around. I'll try to support the attack there, but I don't really have a great feel that I'm going to win this in that manner. I haven't really been able to win the Netherlands over. Even if you throw all of Spain's power that way, the English can just ship their own big units in there a little bit more easily. So when I compare the strengths of the Spaniards, the English actually have a little bit more shipping power, a little bit more firepower. They also have the advantage of good leadership and slightly better flexibility in terms of being able to disengage from battle, etc. I want to make sure that I'm not just, you know, taking a roll of the dice after I cross this large sea zone to make it there. So I'm going to need a bigger force. Well, luckily I have a lot of money. So I'm going to try to build the ocean-going deep draft navy as much as I can, but it's kind of hard to tell because when you count these guys up, 4, 8, 12, 18, 28, 32, 36, 40, these are shallow draft. I'm not going to count them. So I'm going to say it's going to cost me $40 a turn just to keep the navy afloat. Okay, that's ignoring victualling, which I'm going to have to pay to travel with, right? Victualling is going to cost me twice the maintenance cost per unit. Okay, that's another $80 if I'm not in a port. So now I'm at 120 a turn, right? Let's get my calculator for this. Plus, I'm going to need to bring some troops across. I can't just land in England, especially since it's the first year. Now, I'm going to try to land in Ireland first. That's tricky, but I think a landing in Ireland and then a shift over to Scotland is the way to do this. I'm going to try to land there first, but I have to victualize the troops as well at 5 times their strength point cost. So if I'm carrying 3, 6, 9, you know, another 19, okay, let's say I'm carrying close to 30 strength points of troops, that's another 150 a turn. Okay, I'm at over 200 a turn. If I don't build anything, I can only last 10 turns victualling. Great. Okay. But I'm not going to do that. It's going to take me like 3 turns of victuals to get across. So right there, let's say 200 times 3. So I've spent, say, 600 bucks. Let's call it 700 just for rough calculations. For victualling, for maintenance costs, it may be higher than that because of the troops. I don't want to cut this too fine because I have to sail those ships back to Spain. And remember, I lose lots of victory points if I don't make it. Why back to Spain? Well, because I've got a limitation to the port holdings. I could land 6 strength points of ships in Antwerp because I don't have any Dutch-built or Walloon ships there. But essentially, I'm not allowed to land them in France. I could store them in England if I capture things. And that could help me. I could keep a fleet in England, but chances are I'm going to be outnumbered, and that's going to be kind of tricky anyhow. So I probably have to make my way back. So we're talking about 700 for the trip there, say. The rest, I can spend maybe 1,000 ducats on building ships, and that's going to take me 4 turns to get those launched. Well, luckily for me, there aren't that many Spanish ships. Now right away I'm beginning to say, wow, I don't have a lot of additional strength. Well, there aren't a lot of British ships either. Maybe I want to bring those shallow drafts with me. They can't actually engage directly. Oh man, but they make things more complicated. Because they don't fight in the same battle. So I'm going to lose the big battle and then lose my shallow drafts? I don't know. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to aim for a deep draft navy. Try to get this built as quickly as possible. That's 2, 4, 6, 10 more strength, 10 more maintenance points. That's going to cost me 250 bucks. I can buy that. I may want to build some shallow draft units as well. Dig into my cash on those suckers just to reinforce defending the Spanish territory. Because if the English come back around, say they defeat me in a close battle, I may need a good solid shallow draft navy to swing into play and prevent the English from hitting. It looks like I have enough money to build what I need to. Likewise, the English are going to have to make the same kind of decision here. What are you going to build? What are you going to do? You know, what do you need to upgrade? At the same time as I'm making that choice, I also have to choose what ships or what troops I'm going to build. Now, when does this all happen? Additional activation and construction. This is right at the beginning of the game. So I've got to figure out my plan, and then the nature of the game is such that I'm going to be sitting there, you know, performing some little maintenance routines while I move my ships up the tracks, maybe building some troops and sending them to the Netherlands. I think I should count on that. But largely, I'm just going to be doing kind of some bookkeeping and time wasting until I can get a force together. Then I launch it. I take my one big shot. There's other stuff that's going to be going on, but that's my one big shot. And then we see how it turns out. Now, one of the risks to doing this early is there's a benefit to doing it late because I give the English less time to screw with my rebels that I'm planning on using and having show up. The English have a much, much easier time of just, you know, building up the English army and fighting me off. All right. But I want to go for that early invasion. I don't think I've ever done it. Okay, well, doing those calculations, I run into some really ugly factors. First of all, I'm looking at, only building a handful of ships. But here's the problem. The Spanish Navy fills up its harbors. So I've got to start pulling ships out of dry dock and form them up. Now, if I'm going to have a decent sized fleet out and pay money for that to begin with, then I started looking at how many turns it's going to take. It's going to take me 2 turns to get those ships off the chart. Well, 1 really. It's going to take this turn because next turn they'll come off the chart. Fine. So next turn I can slap down new ships. That puts them here. 1, 2, 3, 4 more turns to build. That gives me August before the fleet's as big as it can be. Sailing through September and October is just ugly. So really, I'm left with the choice of this year or next year. Next year I can have a bigger fleet, and the English really cannot. But I'm going to go with this year. The reason being, English capital is lower right now. They may not be able to fully provision their fleet. I may be able to get the drop on them, gunpowder-wise and victuals-wise. I have a lot of cash. I'm also placing Walloons, a bunch of Spaniards in Italy to go up the Spanish road, and then some German mercenaries so that I can undertake a war in the Netherlands. I'm not wedded to going into France at this point. So far, my experiences with that have not been worthwhile. So, my plan is launch a bunch of ships down here to the south, move them forward, launch some more ship. Wait, these don't launch this turn, but they launch next turn. Start some more ships launching next turn over here, and try to prepare for the invasion. Now, what's not clear is how much visibility you have into the other person's ports. Ships and counters on the map, you're not supposed to look through the stack, but clearly these are open to inspection at least. I would say that this decision is made simultaneously, so the English did not do anything except launched a single ship, and they have a tonnage problem too, which is that all their ports are full except Hull. The Spaniards had one port, Oporto, where they could build a 5-point ship. So the English spent a little bit of cash on theirs. I only have them at $10. That can't be right. That's supposed to be at $50. It's 25 times the hull size, which is the same as what the Spaniards spent here. The English don't have a lot of troops that they can throw into things. They're not planning to do that. However, they do have kind of the restriction here that the Dutch are going to be weakened. And I'm a little worried about this expansion of the Spanish army here, now that I see it. But I started a turn, I'm going to end up starting a turn later for the English for that. So now we go to the naval interface. Well, nobody's got any boats on the board, so we can skip that because there's not going to be any naval action going on. And now we go to the land interface. The English have to go first. I'm going to think about their position in here. There's one interesting thing about, at least how I've seen this game. I played it mainly back when I had no idea really of the historical situation in the Spanish Netherlands in particular. Which is to say, I'd stack up a pile of units because there really is no stacking limit and slam it into another pile. Well, that's historically inaccurate. And I want to look at the game through the lens of my current eyes to look to see, is there any reason that I'm in every space? Now, for the English, these spaces, why am I even here? And now, historically, the Dutch did not want to give up that land. And I think the game has sort of a flaw where you really, really don't want to leave your troops exposed as they are. Since the English go first, I'm not going to move them because it's winter time. So I can skip that over, and we go to the English land. We go to the Spanish movement in combat phase, and well, here again, do I want to take attrition? I mean, there's got to be a real advantage to agreeing to try to conduct a winter campaign. I don't feel like I have that advantage. I certainly don't have it here where I want to, say, move things through Spain to get them closer to the edge. So I'll skip that as well. And now we hit the administrative interface, and this is the maintenance costs. Uh-oh. Time to pay the troops. I don't have to worry about the stuff on the tracks, but I do have to worry about these. Now, I may have said it's a ducat per strength points. It's actually 2 per strength point for physical, for military units. So this is 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. I should be decommissioning these suckers because I'm not going to need them right away. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Over here, 19, 23, 33. That's going to cost me 66 bucks. There's a quick 50, 56, 66. And the money falls real rapidly. And that's kind of the problem with building up this big army. It's going to cost me a lot. I think I've got enough cash to run the naval attack as well as the attack on the Netherlands at the same time. We'll see if I run out. This is definitely a game where you could kind of spend a lot of effort on the bookkeeping and the money balancing and all that. And it should be. That is a big factor of this. Well, I'm gonna actually dismantle some of my forces. I'm not worried about Madrid falling. This I can transport, but I'll have time later. I'm not worried about Seville falling. I ain't worried about no ghosts. These guys, I may get a free turn out of them if I put them up there. So I've just denuded Spain of troops. What about the English? We haven't paid their maintenance. I don't think they have to pay for the Dutch. They can rebuild the Dutch, but I don't believe they have to pay maintenance fees on them. And yes, here we have the regular, hey, little special rules to look up all over the place. The English player does not pay for the Dutch, no. So I can ignore them, but I have some English down here that I definitely want to pay for. That's 6. Do I have anything? It's going to be hard to get troops up there. I'm going to pay 2 more for that. I'm not worried about the Scots right now. So I pay 6. Oh wait, did I forget to count them? 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to pay 16 bucks for these. No reason to pay for things that, you know, you're not going to use. And I can raise troops in the English fortresses. I don't think I can raise troops in Ireland. So that's kind of, that is my defense of Ireland. And let's not make it too easy on the Spaniards, but we'll see. All right. So that puts us to the end of the first turn. We go to the April turn, and I don't want to just load this one video up. We haven't been able to see a lot of anything, so we'll go a little further. Okay, so here we are in turn 2, which is April. Cool. So what's up? Well, we hit that activation phase, and at this point, all those things that the Spaniards were putting on the burner are going to come into play. So we get some ships here at Seville, Cadiz, and Malaga, and I'll start moving them. But now I have an interesting position, which is, well, I can move, and my Malaga fleet can go at most 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. These are impassable to land, not to navy. So I can get as far as Lisbon next turn. What does that mean? This turn. Whoops. Well, that means certainly I want to have the Lisbon fleet ready for this turn. 23, 11 seems to probably be as good as I can get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's close to 11, so I'm going to hold off on the Corunna fleet, but I got to get a Porto moving. If I can find it. Yeah, this is the Oporto ship. We'll get to that in a moment. And then, what is this? Salamander or something like that. I can't really read. Santander. We'll get that moving too. So we're going to gather our entire fleet here at Corunna as quickly as possible. I'll also move this forward, which it has to. And all these other ships, these shallow draft ones, I'm holding off on. I want to wait. If I start seeing an English threat developing, then maybe I have to worry about them. I also have my units here. Now these all show up at 3225. That's pretty easy. But there's limits to what can show up in the Catholic Netherlands and the German states. And then I have to worry about what the English are going to, whether or not they're going to build up a force. At this point, the Spanish Navy is sitting closest it is at Cadiz. And we're talking 25 hexes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I don't think they're going to launch an attack, but if they did, I'm in trouble if I don't start dispatching some ships. So I think I'm going to have to activate some of the English fleet, maybe not all of it. Okay, but what about those troops that I'm throwing on the board there? Let's see where they show up. And Walloons in the Catholic Netherlands area. 2613, 14, 2715, or 2815. 2613, 14. Where else? 2715 and 2815. That'll be these two. Okay, so that's where these guys can show up. Now, given the nature of this game, I'm going to actually stack these all with Parma, because if the Brits move into one of those Spanish garrisoned locations, then I have the advantage of being able to take it as a siege. Well, if the Dutch move into the Spanish locations. And then my final is the German states. Where are they going to show up? That's actually not adequately covered in the rules, which is to say that they specify it here. This is rule 5 point something somewhere. I don't have this written down. Interesting. 5.2722 or 21. Maybe I do. No. I was pretty sure the Germans are specifically referenced in here. I remembered seeing them. Additionally, interesting. Ah, there they are. 30, 16, 29, 16, 29, 15. So that gives me these 3 hexes. I'm going to activate all my Germans as close as I can and get them moving in too. I want significant force up here, because it's conceivable that I might need to win the Netherlands, which pretty much wins me the game, to be able to support the invasion for next year. Okay. For the Brits, I've got to worry. Clearly, oh, I get to buy more Spanish ships too. Since I want to increase my size of my fleet here. The reason for this is because this guy's really expensive. I'm going to hold off on him. The reason for increasing the size of the fleet is, look, if I make it there this turn, get beaten up, make my landing, or maybe don't, which would be terrible, but at least I have my reinforcements coming in more quickly than if I have to, you know, limp home. Plus I get my production going more quickly. The only problem is I've got to find ports for these ships. At this point, Oporto and Lisbon are not good choices. I think the only place that I have open is over here. Cadiz looks like a good place. Now that'll only hold 9, so I can put 1 there, and that'll be 50 bucks. And this will be another 50, so I'm going to spend a quick 100 on that. I'll throw him, well, if I'm going to build 1 in Seville, I might as well build 2, right? So that's 16, it holds 24. And that's one of the kind of annoying things in it, is balancing out, you know, the ships that you're building. It would be helpful if they mention, if the ratings from the track, or if the ratings of the cities were listed near the track. Do I want to build more army units? Here's where it gets tough. I can build my army up in Coruna when I start building the navy for Coruna. In fact, it actually, yeah. The army that I'm going to transport there. I've got to think a little bit about the English, though. Okay, and I've released more than half the English Navy. Put this one down too. And I'm also building some troops. Largely with the expectation that I need to funnel more forces into the Netherlands. I just don't have enough there to face what the Spaniards are putting into play. And that's kind of important because, well, right now it's the English well, actually it's the naval movement phase. Let's take care of the Spanish naval movement because they actually have some. I gotta reread the rules a little bit on this. So the way this is working is I'm gonna start setting sail here. This has 11 movement points. I'm gonna use coastal movement. That's why it's only 11. It's a 23 halved. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to land here. These guys also have 11 if they travel together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, I've got to kind of worry. They're all in one hex there. Because I'm going to create an armada for that and start victualling it. But I don't want to do that yet. Now they're in a port, they don't need to worry about it. I'm going to do my collection up at Coruna and prepare my fleet there. These guys can move 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. I'll sail them as far as Oporto just because there's no harm in doing so. Get me a little further along. And I don't worry about the others. The English have no ships available at this point. So now we go to the land phase, and now I've got to think about the English. And, well, I'm going to do this in a little bit more detail than I will for the rest of the game, looking at the situation in front of you. But here's what I'm worried about. Now, I can't look at the Spanish holdings. I don't know how much they have here. But I do know that I have problems here with Dunkirk. Yeah, I could get sieged there, and that would suck. And this is where the game gets weird, right? The Dutch would not leave Dunkirk, but I can't afford to stay there because I might get sieged and then I don't have a relieving force yet. So I'm moving here into Brill, which is actually important. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'll lose a ship. Crap. Okay, so I can't afford to lose Dunkirk. Yeah. All right, well, that means I'm going to have to start trying to relieve things at Antwerp.
And this is where it also gets kind of weird. So Breda is very important. It's worth 10 victory points. It's a fortress. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect up my forces. All here at Breda. And I'm going to launch an attack on Antwerp. Now, the Spanish don't want to fight there, so they're taking it as a siege, in which case I get to advance. I've got to leave a unit here to have the right to defend that as a siege. So now I've laid siege to Antwerp. Now that can last forever. And this is where things get troublesome, right? Because I also have to worry about Amsterdam, which right now is invulnerable. The Germans can't slide in that way. And the Italians, I don't think, can go into Germany. I think only Germans can go in Germany. So there's kind of this, okay, the front line is going to be there. But if I don't get a ship down here to lay blockade to that, that's going to never fall because it's an open port. Now, the problem is the Spaniards probably have a stronger force. That's what they're counting on. Let's get some of their troops moving. First of all, we can walk down the Spanish road. Secondly, 1, 2, 3. Hey, we're ready for an attack here. Now, I'm not terribly worried about this. I'm not terribly worried about this. I'm not too worried about Liege. So I'm going to gather my entire army. And no, this is not clear, but I'm assuming I cannot take this as a siege with Nassau. I'm under attack now. So let me check the relieving forces rules to see if the troops inside Antwerp can defend themselves. But the Dutch have a really hard time against the Spanish army here, and there's nothing like there is in Europa Universalis. They can't employ flooding or anything like that to prevent a fight from happening. Okay. I realize the Brits, or the Dutch, screwed up here. I don't have to try to defend these terribly. I'm going to continue with what I'm doing. But the reason I don't have to is these are ports, they can't fall. But Breda is not a port. And, well, the historical siege of Breda, I think, happened during these years, but I'm not positive. But it can fall very easily. Anyhow, what we have here is the Duke of Parma attacking Nassau. He's going to get all his strength points. Nassau gets all his. These guys are halved in the relieving fight. They're allowed to combine in. The wording is a little ambiguous there. It's a parenthetical that they're halved. I could see people who are really cranky about things being exactly perfect for them having a disagreement about that, but honestly these rules are just not that bad. Okay, so let's add it up. What do we got? 6, 20, 29, 34, 40, 43, 49, 53 strength points there. Yeah, there's a reason I use tweezers, but I can't use them. I can't remember that number. All right, I can't count on camera. I'll come back in a moment. Okay, it ends up it's 59 Spaniards, including the leader, against, shit, I think 14 Dutch. Okay, 14 goes into, well, 15 goes into 64 times. So we're looking at a 4-to-1 attack here. That does not sound good, and I probably should not have moved forward with the English. It's going to be greater than 3-to-1. We just make a die roll. 6. So the attacker takes 2. The defender will take 3 and a retreat. All right. And now I look through and try to pick my weakest units, basically, because I want to keep the campaigning season going. The English, I lost the weakest of the Dutch units here, and they can bring them back next turn. For the Spaniards, I had some real choices here. I chose to take some Germans, no biggie there. That's a tiny unit. It can come back into play. And a Spaniard, the Spaniard's a harder call because he's kind of out of play for a longer period of time. But the reason I'm doing that is, well, I can build him back here or build him here, whichever one. But it allows me a little bit of flexibility at a time when I feel like I have plenty of force in the Netherlands. Because here's the thing, I can't take any of these cities until I get boats up there. Now, that could count these crappy little Walloon boats that I didn't start building. Or maybe even the barges, but it is impossible for me to take the sea areas. And I guess that's kind of the equivalent of the effect of the flooding. I can't take them. Breda, however, is available to be taken, and I will grab that. But that's only 10 victory points. I need 15, I need more than 15 to win. So I have to get the naval action up here, and I have to win it if I'm going to win in the Netherlands. If I start building a fleet here at Antwerp, hey, that's good and fine and all, but there's a bigger sea beggar fleet ready to hit me. All right, where are we now? That was Spanish land combat. Now I pay my maintenance phase, and after a little bit of bookkeeping there, I'm not building an armada yet in terms of paying for my stocks. And then I can deactivate some units if I like, and I'll come back after I've finished both those actions. As you can see, I've got maybe half at most the Spanish Navy on the board, and nowhere near the extent of the army that I'm planning on putting out. It still cost me 140 ducats to keep that all on the board each turn. 140 a turn. I'm lucky I rolled that big 2700. You get a bad roll, you've got no way of launching it in the first year. And that's kind of the historical result. I'm hoping I have enough. Over here for the Brits, they spent, I don't know, maybe 16 bucks because they just have a couple of land units on the board. But pretty soon their navies are going to start coming on and being a drain. And we haven't even gotten to victualling and the munitions, which definitely adds in, right? You know, 1600 or 140, well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns at that. Okay, that's about 1,000. I should be okay, right? Well, I've still got a lot of bucks to spend on getting those navies into place. This is the end of the third turn, or the second turn, and I'm going to load this sucker up so that we can see some of the playthrough online. Yay!